Uh, we now go to our last speaker of this first round. This is Imraan Mir, who will speak on the Indus Water Treaty that India has put on abeyance. And Imraan will also speak on international law and human rights, as well as on the state of press freedom in Kashmir. Imraan.
Thank you, Dolores, and thank you all for joining, taking the time to engage with this. It's critically important and not well understood, so your participation is really valued. I will talk about law, and I think about law primarily as a language in these contexts. So what I mean by that is not so much rules that impartially protect people, but rather a widely understandable language that provides a standard, and that standard does certain work. I think the primary work that it does is it is what we need to believe is real or realizable in order to have peace. So there's two terms people have kind of mentioned, and I'll describe them, that are important legal terms in this context. One is occupation. In law, occupation is the idea of effective control without title. It means that a state controls others' territory. It is often illegal. It typically involves myriad violations. Colonization is something different. It is alien domination, subjugation, and exploitation, outsiders' denial of a people's right to self-determination. All of Jammu and Kashmir, the historic territory of Jammu and Kashmir, which means is in reference to a political entity that existed prior to the British leaving South Asia in 1947, all of that territory is occupied territory. Pakistan administered Kashmir, we're talking about that region in part, is occupied under law, but not colonized. Indian administered Kashmir is both occupied and colonized. And Robert and Arthur were describing some of the features of that colonization. So under law, occupation, when not authorized, and we can get in technicalities if you like it is in Kashmir, it is not authorized in Kashmir. It is illegal and is considered to be a grave illegality under international law. Colonization is way worse. If you will, it is impossibly illegal under international law. If you think about the international order that we live under, at its foundation is the principle of self-determination. Whatever you remember about the history of World War II and what happened after, the principle of self-determination is at the core of the entire order that we live under. Colonization is a direct assault on that foundation in a nominally post-colonial world. I just want to make sure you can hear me, because I'm getting a note that my connection is a little unstable. Can you hear me okay?
It's wavering a bit, Imraan. I'm sorry. So I'm just wondering.
Okay, I'm going to cut my video.
Okay.
I would, if I can interrupt, maybe if the other speakers can cut their video or put their video off for now, and maybe Imran can keep his on, that may help with the bandwidth, just to try that.
Okay, please just interrupt me if you can't understand what I'm saying. What I was talking about is colonization. It's way worse. It's a direct assault on the foundations of international order. We are nominally in a post-colonial world. And we need to believe that in order for things that depend on that to be real. For example, things like democracy, the rule of law, and human rights depend on us being in a post-colonial world. But unfortunately, that is not true. We are not in a post-colonial world, and Indian administered Kashmir is a leading example of that reality. So what's happening in Kashmir, the broad territory, I would encourage you to think about Pakistan administered Kashmir like Pakistan, which is to say there are violations, but they are of a certain type. Indian administered Kashmir is a different reality entirely. I'll focus on that region in my comments, Utter did as well. And generally, when I refer to Kashmir in my comments, I'm talking specifically that portion of the territory. As Utter described, for generations, this place has been subject to state repression to sustain colonial domination. That means there have been rampant human rights violations and atrocity crimes, the worst international crimes, widespread, and no accountability for those violations and crimes. And in fact, that's promoted by law and has in fact been promoted by the international community. And I'll describe that in part here. In recent years, the Indian government in this region has implemented a policy program, and Robert was describing some of the ideological foundations to that program, that was developed by fascist Hindu parties in the early 1950s. And it had certain policy goals. One was to destroy and disintegrate Kashmir. A second was to dominate and disempower Kashmiri Muslims, who are the vast majority of the population, and to Indianize and Hinduize Kashmir and Kashmiris, which means to erase and replace their history, identity, and culture. So that situation has resulted in a circumstance where there is no free expression, no free assembly, no free movement, no free press, no human rights work permitted, no independent journalism permitted in this region. There's a total silencing, pervasive surveillance, very, very limited news, and all of that news is state-controlled. Most of that news is entirely consisting of or comprised of disinformation. Today, there's expanded collective punishment, expanded forced demographic change, total control and domination by an ethno-nationalist state, and the population itself is isolated from the international community, or at least those members of it who would seek to help or speak to the issues that they're facing. That includes international civil society, it includes international media. There's an active program to destroy their economic capacity, educational access, and again, destroy their culture, identity, and history. And I think Athar gave some details about a lot of those phenomena. The recent weeks have meant just more insecurity, death, and destruction. It's a reminder that Kashmiris don't matter. And from the point of view of the international order, they are not humans with rights. In Pakistan-administered Kashmir, what Umar was describing, those consequences are primarily the result of, or a consequence of, geopolitics. India v. Pakistan. They are fighting each other. Bombs drop from the sky, people die, their homes are destroyed, their fields are destroyed. In Indian-administered Kashmir, that's true. There's that geopolitical circumstance. But there's also a war being waged by a powerful state and a powerful military against a defenseless civilian population. So in addition to the bombs from the sky, and the last few weeks, you have a further escalation of surveillance, repression, raids, killings, demonization and scapegoating, hate speech promoting violence against this group of people, collective punishment, including blowing up people's houses, mass arbitrary detention. A couple people here said 2,000 people. The numbers that we have is at least 5,000 people have been detained in the last few weeks, and we don't know. The truth is that there's not enough transparency to even know the exact numbers. So on the Indus Waters Treaty, I was asked to speak to, as you might have heard, India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty as in their rhetoric, as a consequence of this recent conflagration. In fact, they've threatened to do so for a very long time, many, many years.